The crew of the expansion fleet is bolted into their seats as they jump into the next sector. As they come out of their FTL space, they are immediately thrown against their restraints, yet it is required so they don't end up a puddle on the side of the wall. As soon as they come back into normal space, they immediately release their harnesses and start to get to work, checking all the systems to make sure everything was good. This was a standard practice, though it took several minutes and was very tedious. It was something that simply had to be done. As they got everyone checked in and made sure everyone was where they were supposed to be, they realized that they had lost 0 personnel, a good jump. Lost 0 equipment, even better jump. With that, they began to send their shuttles out to see what was available around this entire sector. They had jumped in on the zenith portion of the star, so they started to spread all their ships out like a spider's web across the entire sector. This way, they could check the entire sector in a matter of about 12 days, instead of taking easily 30 days to take the entire fleet as one whole and do a loop around the sector. It was not more than 4 days before a radio call came in. There was a strange planet, the third one from this yellow star, that was interesting. There was some sort of structures on it. Structures that seemed to be fairly well maintained. With that, the fleet moved into position over the planet and immediately called down to see what was going on. After the simple hailing, they got a response. The response was simple. Welcome. With that, they sent down another message, asking what was going on, who were they. Welcome to human space. You are welcome to join us. They were confused. This seemed to be an automated message. They sent another one down. Join you where? With that, they received a set of coordinates. They looked down onto the planet and realized that it was only large enough for a shuttle. A ship called the Ornikuk was told to go down and check out the planet. It was small enough to land on the bay, but large enough to have big enough guns where if they needed to shoot their way off, they could, while still avoiding orbital weapons fire. The expansion fleet moved in above the planet and simply waited to see what was going on. As they got to the planet, Captain Snutlet got ready to disembark. As they landed, he ordered that the air be checked to see if they required suits, but none were needed. As they got down to the egress bay, they waited for the doors to open, and as they did, everyone there took a collective breath in just in case the air was not safe to breathe. But as they slowly exhaled and started to inhale, they realized that there was a pleasant aroma about this planet. It was amazingly clean. But that wasn't the strangest part. As the bay doors finally reached the bottom, allowing a ramp to be made, there was 4 bipeds standing there. 2 male, 2 female, at least from what they could see. All 4 of them wore strange, seemingly robotic suits. It was a strange, almost exoframe that they wore. The security detail was immediately on edge seeing this, but they did not see any weapons, so they didn't take it too seriously. As they walked down, Captain Snutlet was always going to be first. He walked up, and the first one to introduce themselves was a seemingly slender biped. This biped was extremely pale, hairless except for what was on his head and 2 other spots over the sides. And yet, it seemed to be mammalian. He wasn't sure about this. But this small, skinny one stuck its hand out and said, "Hello, my name is Lynn. Welcome to the human section. What can we help you with?" He was surprised by this sort of gesture. He stuck his hand out to try and emulate it, but was actually even more surprised when she simply took his hand and wrapped her fingers around it, not hard, as the security team immediately was on edge again, and then simply raised it up and lowered it once. "Welcome. I'm sure you have many questions, and we have many answers, and of course we have many questions for you. If you will please follow us, But before I go, I would like to say, as you know, my name is Lynn. This here's Harry. That's Diane. And that's Kim. They all nodded and said, "Pleasure to meet you," almost in unison. With that, the captain was a little surprised. The four seemed to walk casually, but with a deliberate grace he didn't quite understand. These bipeds were strange. How could they walk on two legs so graciously? They had their backs straight up and down. I mean, the captain's species was a biped too, but they always walked hunched over. Every biped did. How were they different from everyone else? Especially in the gravity, as he felt his bones almost creak a little bit at the influx of gravity that he was dealing with. They walked down past several doors, several dozen actually, and eventually reached one, where it opened as they approached. Then, all four humans stood on side and motioned in. "You can enter, please, and have a seat." As the captain and his crew went in, they realized that there was a large table in the center, along with several seats that were seemingly designed for their own physiology. Without skipping a beat, he simply turned to the closest one, who happened to be Harry, and asked, "Did you know we were coming?" "Oh no, absolutely not. We just have a lot of different conference rooms, just in case something like this may happen." The captain didn't want to question it anymore, realizing that this was a fairly advanced species. He didn't want to piss him off, though he still had his orders to follow. As they sat there and listened, they started to discuss different things about their own species. The first thing the captain asked was, "What are you?" Lynn responded, "Oh, we are Generation 2. It's just, it's who we are." Humans Generation 2. Got it. Alright, then, is this your home planet? "Oh, absolutely. All of us here were born here." The captain looking down to see several other of the humans had joined, all of them in very sparse mechanical clothing. It was very odd to see, but he didn't question it as, hey, who was he to judge? He was standing there in just something that could be akin to a robe for all he had. With that, the other woman, Diane, perked up. "So, could you tell us the nature of your visit?" "Our visit?" The captain was a bit confused. Do you not know why we're here?" "No, or else I would not have asked the question." The captain seemed to snicker at this, and so did the rest of the crew. "We are here to get your surrender." "What?" "Your surrender. You do understand what that word means, yes? No? Do you?" With that, Kim piped in. "Are you trying to tell me that you want us to just start serving you? You just showed up. How could you actually be so arrogant?" "Arrogant?" the captain stated. "Arrogant is from the one who has a battle fleet in space right over our heads right now. And if they wanted, within less than a full rotation of your planet, we could completely slag the entire surface. There would be nothing standing on this surface. It would just be flat and full of all sorts of craters." The ones there, the humans, looked at each other and started laughing a little bit. What is the joke? I don't understand the humor. Why the laughter?" He looked and was immediately put back as all the humans seemed to look at him showing their teeth, a sign of aggression which all the security guards immediately noticed. Suddenly, seeing that the security guards were immediately on edge and starting to raise their weapons, Lynn opened her mouth again. "Oh, I do apologize for that. That seemed to be rude. That seemed to be a predatory gesture. We are not predators. We just find it interesting and funny you think that that's power." "Is it not?" "Oh, we could definitely take out your battle fleet if we wanted to." "How? We've scanned your facility. You have no weapons here." "Oh, that's true. But power is in the eye of the beholder." Heh. The captain was extremely confused at this, but wasn't putting it on any longer. He simply reached inside his robe and pulled out what seemed like a funky type of data pad on top of a crystal, and slid it over between Lin and Kim. You will now sign this. You will admit that the entire species of humans are now under our control, yourselves included. You will get no special treatment, and you will be brought in for re-education, to be shown how to treat our species with respect. You will then be auctioned off to the highest bidder, so that we may continue to reach out among the stars and subjugate others who may oppose us. You will do this now, or we will simply destroy all of you. With that, the humans were no longer laughing. They were no longer smiling. Kim reached up, looked at it, and began to scroll through it. Seemingly have to go in a circular pattern to make it work, but he went through the entire thing. Well, this is bullshit. It's a damn shame, isn't it? Yes, a damn shame. Damn shame, isn't it? The humans just kept seeming saying that. A damn shame. The captain, after about a minute of this, was extremely irritated. You will sign this now, and you will tell us where the rest of your people are hiding, so that they may be placed with control collars and placed in shackles with the rest. Do it now, or we will end you and do it ourselves. Harry simply stood up slowly, the guards already with their fingers on the activation triggers. Well, I'll tell you what. I got 2 words for you. Fuck! Bang! And down he went. He fell over sideways where the rest of them couldn't see. Lynn and Diane immediately dropped to the side, started screaming, "Oh my God, you killed him! You killed him!" Kim jumped up and immediately reached for something under the table. Bang, bang, bang! He was down. And down on the ground. Diane spun around and checked for him. She then reached under the table and grabbed something, and as she lifted her head, she took a round straight to the head herself. The energy went straight through the head, searing whatever was inside and coming out the other end. She then fell over. Lynn was now the only one in that room. The captain simply raised both hands in a gesture to stop the firing and to stop his crew from killing everyone. You now see the futility of your actions. We realize that you are a peaceful race. You do not have anything that could face against us. What say you? With that, Lynn looked up and said, "Oh, you dumb bastards. You just had to screw up so bad, didn't you? So bad. Oh. Do you want to know how bad you screwed up? How bad you just completely blew this whole thing?" The captain, very smug, said, "Go ahead. Why don't you show..." With that, all the doors slammed open on all sides, and a whole bunch of humans came rolling in with all sorts of weapons. They began to fire, but so did the security detail. Those of the ship Ornacook, the Cortez, just decided to fight them down. They were larger, slightly, than the humans. Broader, that is. And it's a little bit taller. Thankfully, they had this on the humans, as it seemed as though such small beings were so strong. Many of them were able to pick up one of the crew and simply throw it against the wall, which made the captain curse and wonder how could a member of his own species, the Cortez, be able to be picked up and thrown so easy. He didn't know what it was, nor did he care. He immediately pinged on his own communications and called for security, anyone to come down and rescue him. Being a high-ranking official, he was a very important Cortez. VIK, I guess you could say. And immediately, all sorts of personnel began storming off the ship, firing at anything that seemed to move, breathe, or even crawl. They began to blast the way through, and it wasn't long before all the Cortez were standing there trying desperately to keep the humans from rushing in the doors and firing in. They saw several different devices being thrown in. The security detail immediately knew what this was and threw themselves in the way, and as the explosion began to tear apart their torso, they only had a moment before their heart blew out their asshole. The captain was just amazed. He couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. How would something so peaceful be so violent all of a sudden? He didn't care. As he heard weapons fire coming from down the hallway, he immediately ran as fast as he could down the hallway, the crew covering his ass as he continued to bolt his way through. He was throwing his arms into each human that he found, not doing much damage, but as he tripped over one of the bodies, he looked over at one of the humans and realized something. They're not organic. They're not organic. He looked as the battle raged on, as one of the heads had been blown open. He looked close. It was full of servos, circuits, and all sorts of different things. He couldn't believe this. He was fighting cyborgs? Why? What in the ever-loving... He didn't have time to think about it, as his security detail grabbed a hold of him and began to drag him out as they continued to fire down the hallway as they were fighting retreat the whole way back to the ship. As they got to the outside, they realized that the humans, at least what he thought were human, were waiting, and forced them back inside. They turned and ran down another hall, this time finding a doorway that led down the stairs. They immediately ran down the stairs, trying to find any way to stay inside and wait for reinforcements. But all they found was a solid door. Captain Snutlock continued to cry on the radio, crying for more and more reinforcements, but all he got was more. "They're on their way, sir. They're on their way, sir." 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, all these different times. He was waiting for somebody to come and save his furry tail. Quite literally wanted to hold on to his furry tail and curl into a ball right there. He looked over at the door and wondered if he could get inside. He started to claw at the control panel, trying to find anything, randomly pushing buttons. Eventually, one of the security guards pushed him out of the way and shot the control panel. It began to spark. He grabbed it, ripped it open, and that shorted everything out. He then used the end of his weapon to try and pry the door open, and he realized that it pried from the bottom. Reaching down, he was able to use his energy weapon as like a torch and began to cut into the floor itself, just enough where he could get his fingers under. Burning his fingers on the hot metal, he began to push it farther and farther as more of the crew and security were beginning to fall as the cyborgs continued to push further and further into the facility. But as the door opened up, all the firing stopped. They didn't know what was going on, but the security team didn't have time as they pushed the captain inside and let the door slam behind them. They looked inside as the lights began to click on, and they were surrounded by pods. Pods on either side of the hallway, stacked 2 and 3 rows deep, all the way down this room that must have been several dozen meters long. It was amazing. They walked along and they could see what looked a lot like the cyborgs, but these were not wearing mechanical outfits. They did not wear any fabric at all, in fact, but they looked eerily similar. That is when they believed they figured it out. The captain said, "They're remote control. They must be. These must be, they must be controlling them from the inside, right?" The security team looked up at them and immediately started shaking their head. "Sir, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. There's nothing hooked up to the brain, sir. They're just in these pods and still. There's no way they could control from inside." With that, Captain Snutlock just lost it, and he started beating his hands against the end of the pod. And with that, another cyborg jumped in and knocked him over. "Leave him alone!" A skinny male just seemed to say. The security team turned and immediately whacked it with their weapons. The cyborg got up, trying desperately to keep them away from the pod, but quickly was taken down, several shots to the face, then beaten down. Some of the shots went astray and went into another pod. And with that, the lights flickered out next to the pod, indicating that what was ever inside was gone. This must be, they were protecting it. They're not firing. "Sir, I think you're right. They haven't tried to get inside." well, maybe we can just wait here for our security teams to get back. He tried to ping on the comms, but the room itself was reinforced. No communications were getting out. They simply began to examine what was going on. They began to see there was a difference of male and female. Some seemed to be semi-formed, some others. Some didn't match the picture that was next to them, as they tried to read the human script that was there, but the translator was having the hardest time. It wasn't long until they realized that several different languages were being used, so they simply focused on one or two they thought were similar, and the translator was still having difficulty. But after about 15 to 20 minutes, it figured it out. They started to read each one. These are bioscan. These are... what? These are the humans. Humans space with an S. Son of a... They cursed themselves for not realizing it sooner. If this is their home planet, then this must be where their population is. If we can take them out, they wouldn't be a danger to us. This was a great idea in theory, but they had no idea how they were going to get out. However, it wasn't long before comms kicked in. If you leave now, we will not fire. You will be allowed to leave as long as you do not do any more damage than you already have. This will be the one chance. You may leave. We will not show our faces. Simply go. With that, some of the security teams started taking small pieces off of their packs, these small square boxes, and started putting them next to several of the pods before they left. And then they reloaded their weapons, recharged them, and slowly raised the door. There was nothing. They slowly made their way out, and once everyone was out, they let the door slam back down to the bottom. And they slowly weaved their way through the hallways. As they started going through, they would hear, "Turn left, go straight, turn right." Somebody was watching them and telling them what to do. They didn't understand what the flying hell was going on, but they didn't care. They just wanted to go outside, and eventually they saw the light of day, and as they looked out, they saw that several of their security teams were still taking up defensive positions around the Ornacook ship. They ran out towards them, screaming, "Friendlies are coming out, friendlies!" or whatever version they have of that. As they finally got to the ship, a few of them decided to fire incendiary charges inside the door just to blow the door to pieces so that they would not be followed. They all ran inside the ship, and as soon as the ramp went up, the captain immediately demanded that the ship take off even before everyone was strapped in. As the ship began to lift off, it jerked from side to side. Many of the crew members started breaking bones as it violently shifted, trying to figure out where the weight was distributed. And eventually it turned its nose up towards the sky and activated its main engines. And that would end several of the crew as they were smashed against the bulkheads as the ship itself went full burn off the planet. As it did, the flagship of the battle group, the Sundrake, turned its main guns towards the facility. It began to fire, and it began to fire everything. Everything went down on any human-made facility that was there. All the buildings were brought down to its foundations and still fired upon. They fired on for 2 full planetary rotations. They did not stop. They scathed the planet to make sure if any other species was there, they would make sure there was no food, no flora, no fauna, no nothing for the humans. In doing so, they made the planet uninhabitable for themselves even, but they didn't care. A species this dangerous did not deserve to live. If they let them propagate, then they would become a danger to them. And the last thing they wanted was a threat to the Kongtes species. The Kongtes were at this point completely unchallenged, and they liked it that way. So any species that would not realize that they would be blasted were simply slaves now. Captain Snotlick and his crew would all be hailed as heroes, as not only did they find a new sector that they could pilfer, but they also found an invasive species, one that was extremely dangerous, and valiantly fought their way to destroy them all. The stories, of course, were embellished to make them all seem like they were the most badass motherfuckers in the entire universe. The only ones that knew the truth were the crew themselves, as they realized if they had not found that door, they would have all been toast. And as their fleet finally left that planet, inside the facility, a small light flickered. But the flickering was dying. And as it was flickering, a small arm reached up. A small arm reached up, grabbed a hold of the side of the pod. Lynn raised herself up, pulling herself up on one leg, as her right leg and right arm had both been severed during the bombardment, a piece of debris taking them both off in a quick gesture. But she had turned off her pain receptors, so she didn't feel a thing. Though she looked into the pod, those that were under her charge were now gone. There was one pod remaining. A little girl, no more than 6 years old, was in the pod. Lynn wiped her hand across the front of it, and a small tear, a black tear of sludge, came out of Lynn's remaining eye. I'm sorry. I failed. I'm sorry. As the pod itself ran out of power, Lynn lowered her head in apparent shame. She then moved over to another console where another android had actually been able to set a message up. But unfortunately, a piece of debris had crushed him in his own seat. What was left of him stuck out like a crushed spider underneath all that debris. She realized who it was as she looked at the hand, as it had a ring on the left hand. Oh, Charlie. She reached up and saw that the message was already prepped, but she needed to spin up the drive to send it. As she looked over, the device was damaged and could only do this once, and she worried if there was any chance that she would be able to send this. So she started the process. With the winding of the motor, the process began, building up more and more and more energy. And eventually she saw it reach 100%. It needed a manual release. She reached up. Even though she was losing her balance, she slammed down her left hand on the release button. And with that, a quantum entangled message burst out in every single direction. The omnidirectional burst would be picked up by anyone listening to that frequency. It might take a while before it reaches beyond the sector, but it will reach out. With that, she realized that the burst had done something to her mechanics. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just so tired. And then she slumped down. In the middle of a facility, another group of androids were working their way over to pods, all of them in a rush as they had received a message. They all began to start tapping on the side of the pods to make sure they would open. It was a quick thaw trying to get them out, even though there was no actual cold there. It was just a phrase they used. They kept yelling, "Make it a quick thaw, make it a quick thaw," as they all tried to go out. A female android stood there in that strange corset that she was wearing, covered in all sorts of mechanical devices. She looked at the one she was in charge of. A middle-aged man, though definitely fit as he would be in his 20s, was inside the pod as it began to crack itself open, going through the process of bringing the human back from stasis and back into reality. As the pod opened, the man inside was groggy as all hell. He could hear the voice of the young android. Sorry for the quick thaw, Master Chief, but we got a problem. What's the problem? He reached up and started rubbing his eyes. What's wrong? Oh, God, ow, oh, the headache. Oh, man, quick thaw? Yes, Master Chief. I told you, stop calling me that. I know it's my rank, but stop calling me that. Anyways, what's the problem? Sorry, I'm sorry, Master Chief, but there's a problem in Sector 187. Immediately, the Chief was awake. What about them? Susie, Evan, Lynn, are they okay? We don't know, Master Chief. It turns out that somebody attacked it. Who? Was the Larians again? Or did the Zeonics come back and try to just finish what they started? What happened? What happened? We don't know, sir. It appears to be an extraterrestrial species. Wait a minute. They wait, hold on. Shaking more of the sleep out of him. Are you, wait a minute. Are they gone? What? Oh, sir, calm down. You're thinking too hard. It was a quick thought. It's going to take a few minutes for you. I don't give a shit about that. He looked next to him and saw a man of similar age and similar stature. But this one was in complete hysterics. Almost completely breaking down. Holding his face. Crying into his hands. Oh no. Oh no. No. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Yes, sir. It's a total loss. They're all gone. With that, he looks down to the other man. Sir, until you pull yourself together, I'm taking command. With that, the other man simply shook his head up and down, confirming what he was saying. All right. Sound general quarters.